All right, we're here to talk about stress and what it means for you. What do you do about stress? So, a lot of people don't realize it, but stress is a very good thing in the right amount. And it's a good thing in the right amount because it's going to facilitate you being ready for action that you need to be prepared for. Problem with stress, as you're going to see in the video with Sapolsky, is that prolonged stress is a chronic condition, meaning that it's going to be affecting you long term. It's going to have deleterious effects on your brain, on your life, on your health, on your gut. It's going to affect you in a deleterious manner over the long period of time. So you've got to figure out, how do you manage stress in your life? How are you going to deal with A, the fact that you're going to have stress, and B, how are you going to mitigate that? How are you going to ameliorate the effects of stress on your life? Are you somebody who overreacts? Like, remember we talked about in personality, a neurotic person is going to be experiencing a lot more stress, whereas a person who's low in neuroticism is not going to be experiencing stress as much. So you've got to understand yourself for a bit. Sorry, I hurt my finger, so you see it in my little makeshift splint. The stress that you encounter day to day, if it's sufficient to the day, that's fine. But what ends up happening a lot of times is that we indulge ourselves in thinking about, chewing on, masticating in our cognitive mouth. We regurgitate things and chew on them again, like we're ruminating animals. In fact, they call that process of digging up old stuff or things that we can't handle right now and cogitating again and again as rumination. Just like if you're a cow, you eat grass once, you barf it back up into your mouth, you chew on it again, you swallow it to a different stomach, you barf it back up, you chew on it again, you swallow it to a different stomach, you barf it back up. That's only good for ruminators. We're not ruminators. In fact, mammalian stress response, from a hormonal sense, from a neurologic sense, is meant to deal with immediate threats, not long-term threats. So a long-term threat, and this is why it's so difficult for many people now to deal with the potentiality around our lockdown and around coronavirus, is that they don't have a natural persuasion to understanding the chronic stress that is this long-term, right? People have gotten very lax in their following the guidelines for how we should be behaving with one another to try and mitigate the effects of this virus. And the stress that people are under is making them unglued. What's amazing is y'all are cool, y'all are good, everything's fine. None of you are you're looking at me in a digital image right now. You have access to the internet, which means you have free drinking water in our society. It means you're protected, we're safe in our society. The reality is you shouldn't be stressed. It's not like you live in South Sudan and don't know if the government to the north is going to restrict food aid from the UN coming to you and your baby's going to starve to death. That is acute stress. That's what you should be stressed about. And yet, our bodies, our brains, our hormonal responses get chronic conditions because we live and marinate in a bath of stress hormones all the time when we spend our time thinking about all these potentialities, about all these things we can't control, about all the things that might happen, about all the what ifs.
You know, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, and a lot of strands to keep in my head, man. You know, a lot of strands in old Duder's head.
I don't think thinking is bad, as you've heard me say before. Very few people adequately, put in the balance to juxtapose two divergent lines of thought, and that's a very healthy thing to do. But it's only healthy if if you're able to do it. If it's causing you so much stress that you're having anxiety attacks and heart palpitations, well then stop it. It's not healthy for you. Sapolsky talks about the links between stress or chronic stress and the amelioration of that and one's place in the hierarchy. This is something that's important to note. For me, I'm not stressed about this class. A little bit, right? Because you want to do well, like you want to perform well. You want your students to hear your message. So there's little bits of stress, but I'm a tenured faculty. I'm second oldest person in my department, so if they started kicking us out, you know, for whatever reason, I'm like the second to last to go in our department. Like, I'm not stressed about this. I am worried a little bit, I'm thoughtful about it, but it's not causing me lots of stress. You are in a situation where you might feel a lot more stress naturally than I do. Sapolsky's work suggests that because I'm on the top of the hierarchy at the college, in this sense, I'm definitely not on the top of the hierarchy at the college, but in this sense, between you and I, because I outrank you in this scenario, my stress levels are lower. And he did this. He showed this in, I think he was studying Hamadryas baboons. These are very socially affiliative animals, and they travel in large groups, and they have very strict hierarchies, and basically the strongest male gets to be the dominant one. What he found out was really cool is that your place in the hierarchy, so if you're on top, you have the lowest stress hormone, which is really interesting because in the animal kingdom, that's really weird, right? That if you're on top, if you're in charge of that troop of Hamadryas baboons or apes, or I'm sorry, they're monkeys. So if you're in charge of those monkeys, if those are your monkeys, if that is your circus, you have the lowest stress in the entire troop. But as you go down, chimp by chimp down, or not chimp by chimp, baboon by baboon down the hierarchy, I'm sure it's true as well in other primates who are socially affiliative, like baboons, like humans. But just his work was in those Hamadryas baboons. As you go chimp by chimp down the hierarchy of who's in charge, right? Alpha, beta, all the way down to the zeta, right? The last dude on the list. The stress hormones increase the further down the hierarchy you get. So Sapolsky found this out, and it was incredible. And as you'll see in the video, the Whitehall study that was done in England with this British Civil Service found the exact same connection, right? In civil service, you know, you're a, I don't know what they label them, but let's say you're a G100, right? You're the top guy or top gal in the British Civil Service. The G99, the person just under you, has more stress hormone than you do. The 198 under them has more stress hormone than them, all the way down the hierarchy. So what we see here is that our stress has to do with our place in a social hierarchy. Now, what does that mean for you? What if you feel like you're the bottom of every totem pole? I've heard, though, that that's a misnomer, that if you actually ask the natives who carve totem poles, that the lowest portion is still an honored portion. Anyway, our Western way of saying it, if you're the bottom person on the pyramid, right? If you're the least honored person in your group, that means that you're going to be experiencing more stress hormone than anybody else. But how many hierarchies are you a part of? This is just one class, right? How many hierarchies are you a part of? They're in your friend groups, in your family groups, in your social situations, on your baseball teams, basketball, soccer, football teams. You're a part of a lot of different hierarchies. Now, where we choose to see our efficacy, where we choose to see our value, where we choose to bring valence into how we perceive ourselves can affect how you see, how your stress is made manifest in your own body. So think about that. Something about stress is that we have cognitive control over how much we're going to experience. And if we lose cognitive control, if we allow ourselves to catastrophize, it's going to make this the sort of circular loop where it's continually reinforcing itself and making more stress, which then makes us feel worse, which then has worse effects, which makes us feel more stress, which makes us more, and it gets into this cycle of it. If you don't break that cycle somehow, if you don't find a way to be at peace, for me, meditating doesn't work. A lot of people, meditating works. Prayer, hasn't really worked to de-stress me. What de-stresses me is playing basketball. I play basketball every week. Well, not now, especially not now. But that's been something for me. I've found that form of exercise is a complete de-stressor. Whenever I'm really stressed and I miss that, I watch myself just completely decompensate and become out of control emotionally and cognitively, and just, I'm a wreck. I need that level of social interaction, facilitation, and gameplay to take me down. Whatever yours is, maybe it's not basketball, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's video games. Sometimes video games are enjoyable for me, but I just get sick of them after a while. My kids play them a lot, though. Gotta get those kids. Actually, I played more probably than them when they were their age, when I was their age. Whatever it is that's gonna make you help titrate that level of stress down is gonna be helpful, because there's an optimal level of stress, and we'll talk about the Yerkes-Dodson curve in the next video. All right, the Yerkes-Dodson curve is named after people who talked about it first, Yerkes and Dodson. Now, it basically plots on two axes, right? So the two axes are the vertical axis, which, if you know, in the Cartesian plane is the y, and the horizontal is the x. So along the vertical axis, the y-axis, they plot performance, right? How well you do anything. So let's just think about how well I deliver a lecture. Now, how well I deliver a lecture is on the y-axis, right? There's like my best lecture ever. Like, I did that someday. One day, I nailed that thing, right? I just got it. And then there's the other days where it's just no bueno. Along the x-axis, along the bottom axis, the horizontal one, we have anxiety. Another word for that is arousal, and I believe that that's the word that they used. Along that was performance versus arousal. Don't get all dirty on me and think arousal is sexual. It's not. But anxiety arousal, sympathetic nervous system arousal would apply to performance along the sexual axis as well. Now, here's the thing. Imagine you woke me up. I was up in my room and I'm asleep in the morning, and you wake me up and say, "Start lecturing right now." I would be terrible, right? What? I've had coffee. I'm not ready. That level of arousal, no anxiety, I'm asleep, I'm unconscious, means the performance is going to be terrible. But if you slap me around a bit, gave me a cup of coffee, you increased my arousal level, you let me go, brush my teeth, take a shower, what's happening is as arousal's increasing, you're also seeing a correspondent increase in performance. That corresponding increase in performance is related to that a level of arousal is increasing. It's correlated with it. It's rising up. If you say, okay, this is a very important lecture, it's going to be broadcast nationally. Well, whoa, I'd better be good, right? You give me some incentive, some arousal level of, wow, this is going to be a broadcast, like I'm going to be on with Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson, whoever you like. I don't like either of them. So I'm going to be on with them, and I'm going to talk, and I'm going to have to tell them that I told them on national television I don't like them, right? So stress is increasing and increasing. What ends up happening with performance is that your performance, if it gets to a peak level, it's going to start to curve down when that arousal continues to rise up. Instead of continuing to rise up with arousal increasing, at some point, you're going to get a law of diminishing returns. It'll flatten, and then you'll get a decrease. And then what's going to happen is, if I think everyone's going to see this and they're going to hate me, and no one will love me, and I'll lose my job, and my wife won't want to be friends anymore, and my kids will think I'm a doofus. Well, my kids will know I'm a doofus. If that stress level keeps going up, my performance is going to be down. So that's Yerkes-Dodson curve. That increased performance is only for a little while helped by increased stress. After a peak level of performance is reached, maintaining that level of stress is really important, not pushing it too far. Think about yourself taking a test. Let's say I wake you up and I come to your house and I wake you up in the morning. That's a little creepy, but whatever. Let's stick with me on the analogy. Hey, take the test right now. Here it is. I give you the test. And you're like, what? My hair's, I don't even have a scrunchie and blah. I don't know, you guys wear scrunchies anymore? That's what they used to wear. I'm not ready for this test. your performance would be low because your arousal level is low. But if you say, okay, tell you what, meet me in 10 minutes. I'm going to go take a shower, get a cup of coffee, take a quick, warm up, look at my notes. Then I'm going to take the test. If you increase your arousal level, boom, your performance is going to go up. If you had the opportunity to go and get in the class, remember state trait learning, it's better where you learned to take it than underwater like a scuba diver. If you got to that peak level of arousal, you'd be the best performance on that test you could, right? But that arousal is only here. If you kept moving your arousal forward, if you kept going forward, and that might be like sort of this rumination thing that I talked about previously, where you go, well, what if I don't do well on this test? What will happen then? I might fail this test, and then I won't get a good grade in this class. And if I don't get a good grade in this class, I might not get the GPA I want. If I don't get the GPA I want to get into the college I don't want to get into. If I don't get into the university I want to get to, I don't get into the program I want to get into. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm going to not have my career, and then I'm not going to have anyone who loves me, and I'm going to have a bunch of cats and live by myself and be dissatisfied with my life. You see what's happening to your performance as that level of arousal is going up, as you're catastrophizing, ruminating over all these possibilities of what ifs. What ends up happening is where you were, you needed to maintain, but through that sort of cognitive overload of stress increasing, your performance on the test comes down. Your focus is elsewhere. You gotta find that happy Goldilocks zone where the anxiety is at the right point, the arousal is at the right point, so that your performance is at peak. Notice when you fail to do this and figure out what are the things you can do to mitigate that. How can you manage that next time? There's always a next time. Remember, life is not a game, it's a whole lot of games. And if you realize why you failed one game, then you can adjust your strategy. You can figure out how to monitor, how to reduce, how to alleviate the stress that you encounter. This is something you can do. And if you don't do it, there are 4 very bad consequences that I will show you.